Hello everyone. I wanted to talk a bit about what it's like to heal from trauma. I'm someone that's had some extreme psychological experiences. If you want to know who I am, I'm a musician and composer who formed an attachment to a stranger while in fight or flight mode. And I went through a psychosis trying to contextualize that attachment with other relationships that I had in my life. I feel like that's an experience that I've more or less integrated now, and I wanted to share some principles which I feel are good to stick to when it comes to healing from traumatic or psychologically extreme experiences. Principle number one is that your trauma was your experience. It happened to you. It didn't happen to somebody else. That's a very important insight because when something really stressful happens, you often get the idea that you don't really matter or that you're just an automaton. You are a human being, you do deserve love, and you're the one that had the experience. Even if it might have felt like you weren't really there, that doesn't mean that you didn't live through it. That's principle number one. Principle number two is other people are there to listen. You are not going to bore them by talking about your trauma. You might have a lot of feelings of guilt and shame because what happened was something very difficult to cope with, and these feelings are normal parts of the human experience. While it is true that you were the one that had the experience, you do not need to needlessly suffer in silence with the burden of having lots of emotional baggage, of memories that you really don't want to remember. Principle number three is that you are a sane human being who has lived through insane circumstances. Part of life is that we have to adapt when things get really difficult, and our adaptive strategies are how we cope. Dissociation is how you cope when things get really unbearable. We're probably more likely to dissociate when we're in conditions that make it very difficult for us to develop and flourish as people. For example, if we're being abused, or if we're being robbed of control over our own lives. Principle number four is that your thoughts about what happened do not have to form a singular linear narrative. The brain is a hugely complex thing, and it might be trying to see things from multiple different perspectives in order to make the memory easier to handle. When I was going through a difficult time, I found this to be very disorientating to live with, and I kept wondering if something was wrong with me. In reality, the stories are all different ways of looking at the same experience and how it made you feel on the inside. Principle number five is that your feelings do not have to be consistent about it. You might feel angry, bitter, sad, or even amazed that you managed to come out on the other side of it. All of these feelings are a natural part of responding to difficult experiences. It's a good idea to be there with those feelings when they happen, whatever they may be. In my experience, traumatic memories are like a jumble of snapshots, and so therefore afterwards I would experience a jumble of different emotions, all of which help me to make peace with myself after the event. Crying does a lot of good, and hugs as well if you feel like you need them. Principle number six is you can't turn back time. No matter how hard you try, there is nothing you can do which undoes the event and how you reacted to it at the time. Rather than treating time as something that you need to escape from, treat it as your friend. You have time. The feelings of grief are transient and they will go away eventually. Cathartic release of emotions is something that you might find helpful. Principle number seven is your creativity is an ally in this. Not everything has to be expressed in words. There is a lot of artistic inspiration that can come from negative life experiences. If what happened made you feel angry, create something that expresses that anger. If you imagine that a bomb has gone off underneath your house, suppose that it's your job to take the rubble and to create something new out of that. Principle number eight is, if you need someone else's opinion and feel like you might benefit from it, ask for it. If you have a decent social circle, they won't gaslight you. They'll help you understand that things might not be as bad as you think they are. Gaslighting is when you're manipulated by others into doubting your own sanity, and friends should do the opposite of that. Principle number nine is that you lead the way and do what you feel is right. There are costs and benefits to everything, and there's no straight answer on how to manage it. Do what's right for you and try your best. The label PTSD may be helpful in terms of indicating to other people that you have additional support needs at this time. Remember that we live in a hierarchical society, and in a hierarchical society, the vast majority of people are subjected to some kind of oppression, which is in itself a dehumanizing thing to go through. Other people will support you in the inner struggle that you are going through because they will have similar lived experiences of oppression. You are definitely not alone. Principle number 10 is a long-term one, which is that although you may have had a particularly difficult experience, you can learn so much from it. For example, my experience of sectioning taught me that a hierarchical society really seems to value guardedness and putting a brave face on it when things go wrong, rather than being open to showing your imperfections. Proudhon's rant about how to be governed is to be observed at every interaction and to have every aspect of your life regulated or controlled in some way really says a lot about how I felt when I was sectioned. I feel the need to share those principles because when I had something that was bothering me, I found that talking about it and making art was the best thing for me. I also got a huge benefit from meditative practices. I never got a diagnosis of PTSD, and as far as I remember, I didn't seek one because my initial experience was not one of mistreatment at the hands of other people, and that makes quite a big difference to how you react to an event. Psychologically, it's my view that our brains create our own traumas, not in the sense that we are responsible for the negative things that happen to us, but we have the ability to mediate our psychological responses to what happens to us. Dissociation is not a decision that we make, but being able to identify and label dissociation is an important life skill because it can be a sign that you're finding something difficult to cope with. In my opinion, these principles are for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a trauma survivor or not. We all need to identify when we're struggling inside and know that sometimes we need other people to listen to us, and sometimes other people need us to listen to them. These principles are really what I think help us to take care of ourselves and look after our mental health. Many thanks to my contributors on Patreon: Aidan Kearns, Amin Villalba, Brandon Haukus-Tischer, Calvin Moore, Comrade Dr. Fraser Crane, Crouton and Baguette, Sagladeon, Deviath Fur, Drakur, Flagburner, Iblis Rising, Jack Bryant, Jack Reacher, Joe Martin, Julius Nyborg Olsen, Comrade Klaus, Marty, Michael Norling, Oklahoma People's Alliance, Patrick Barney, Patrick Gordon, Piss Ghost, Richard Pearson, Top Hat, Totally Radical Politics, Vrisha Jures, and Triple X, Swagmaster 420, Triple X. That's just an unforgettable name. This has been Libertarian Socialist Rants. Thanks for watching.